Okay, we're going to let the squash and the onions and the salt and water, we're going to let them sit out here on the counter just like this for about 2 hours. My cucumbers have still got about 30 more minutes to sit in the salt brine. So while that's sitting in there, I think I'm going to get my vinegar-based brine ready for the pickling process. And there's not very many ingredients, and it's just real easy to throw together. And over here in this is my water bath canner, and this is what a lot of y'all said that y'all have, that y'all don't have a pressure cooker, that you have a water bath canner. So this is one of the recipes that you'll be able to do really easy. Now I've got 3 cups of just regular white vinegar. And I've got 3 cups of sugar. Now I'm going to turn my heat on. Get that starting to heat up and to dissolve this sugar. Now this is going to be, it's not going to be like a sweet pickle. I think to me it's more like a bread and butter pickle, really. But this is a wonderful way to use when you've got so much squash. Just one of the things you can put in your pantry. And I think my next video we're going to be making relish with it, squash relish, which it'll have bell peppers and some different ingredients, and it takes the place of maybe a pickle relish that you put on hot dogs. You can put in potato salad, put in deviled eggs, just anything that you would use regular relish for, you can use squash relish with it. In fact, I'd rather have it than just regular relish. So that's heating up and it's starting to dissolve. So that's 3 cups of white vinegar and 3 cups of sugar. So now we need 2 teaspoons of celery seed. And I need 2 teaspoons of mustard seed. And I have yellow mustard seed and I also have brown mustard seed. This is kind of mixed up here because I had used it in some pickling. But it doesn't really matter which one you use, the yellow or the brown, but just remember that your brown mustard seed is a little bit spicier than the yellow. So you need 2 teaspoons of mustard seed. And 2 teaspoons of turmeric. And turmeric root is really good for you. I put turmeric a lot of times when I'm fermenting my cabbage and stuff like that. It makes it really good. Okay, that's all there is to the pickling brine. And we're just going to heat this up, let it come to a simmer. And I've got my jars in here, my pint jars. We're heating the water up and heating the jars up. And by the time all this gets ready, my squash will be done soaking in the salt brine. Now what we'll do is we'll take our squash over to the sink and we'll drain it, but we won't rinse it. So I'm going to let this cook a little bit, let it heat up, let all the spices and the sugar dissolve good. When we come back, we'll be getting our squash in our jars. Okay. I got 3 hot jars here. I always keep my jars as many as I can in my hot water to keep them hot. I've got my pickling brine right here. I let it come up to a quick boil. I let it simmer for just a couple of minutes, so it's really good and hot right now. So all we're going to do is start filling our jars. And like I told y'all earlier, drain your squash and onions, but don't rinse them. Don't rinse them. I know you're going to want to rinse them, but you want to leave some of that salt on there. A lot of it's going to drain off when you drain your squash. So let's get busy filling our jars. Some of our squash here, and you can use zucchini. If you got a bunch of zucchini that needs to be used up, that would be perfect. And you can even mix it. You can have some zucchini and you can have some squash. Just try to get as many down in there as you can. Now this is supposed to do 6 pints, this recipe. But we know sometimes that's give or take. Give or take a few. Now, if y'all can see, I've cut mine in about 1/2 inch chunks. You don't have to cut them that thick. That's just the way I prefer them. You can cut them in 1/4 inch thick chunks. And that's usually what a pickle recipe will tell you. I just like a thicker chunk pickle. Now these should stay pretty crisp. They shouldn't get too soggy. And I tell you, when your squash starts coming off, it starts doing it, and before you know it, you're overwhelmed trying to think what to do with all of it. Now, we love fried squash. I use squash in different recipes, squash dressing, just all kinds. Of course, we fried it with potatoes and all that good stuff. But sometimes you just need a good recipe to preserve that squash and get it on the shelf in the pantry. I'm not too sure I can get that one in there. We're going to try. So the next thing you want to do, since the salt's already, it's already been in the salt brine, you're not going to put any salt in here. So we're just going to take our pickling brine here. And what you want is a 1/2 inch headspace. I'll tell you, that smells so good. And that turmeric, it makes your jars look pretty, and it smells so good. Try to get a 1/2 inch headspace. I need a little bit more in there. Now you can use this recipe here with cucumbers too. I think the next recipe I'm going to do is going to be with using the squash, because I still got squash. And then after that, I think I'm going to do the chow chow recipe, because I've got a lot of people wanting the recipe for good old southern chow chow. Now, if my squash was cut thinner, I could probably get more in there. But we're good right there. So all we got to do next take my cloth and clean around the rims and the very top to get that sticky off, because your lids won't seal if we don't. You can also use this brine to pickle eggs. We need to do that sometime. This brine is good for a lot of different veggies, pickled eggs, cabbage. Okay, now we're just going to put our lids on. Oh, no, we're going to debubble. Never, never forget to debubble. Miss Lori almost forgot. Can't do that. So debubble. Just go around the sides. Now Danny and I are not real big pickle eaters, so I don't, as far as buying pickles at the store, I really don't do it. If we're going to have people over and hamburgers or something that requires pickles, I might break down and buy some. Otherwise, we just eat what I make homemade, or we just don't eat them because we're just not that big on pickles. But this right here, we'll eat. So put your rings on finger tight. And I'm going to put these back in the canner, and I'm going to take the rest of my jars out and get them done, and when we come back, we'll finish our process. Okay, we're putting our last jar in our water bath canner. And I've got about 2 inches of water over the top of my jars. And I'm going to put the lid on. And I'm going to let this come to a big rolling boil, and I'm going to let it, water bath can, let it boil for about 15 minutes. Okay, so here's our squash pickles. 15 minutes in the canner. I took them out, let them sit a while, and they've all sealed real good. They look really pretty. You can see that that turmeric gives it that golden yellow look. These are really good pickles. I hope y'all try it.